All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first set of sessions at this conference. This is Potential for Diversification through Agritourism. We will not be reading speakers' bio, just in the interest of time, but do know that they are on the Hoover app. And you can continue to interact with the speakers and with your fellow attendees in the Hoover app until December 1st, okay? Or at happy hour, wherever you get the opportunity. I won't judge you, okay? Let's go ahead and introduce the first session this morning. It's Agritourism as a Strategy for Rural Economic Diversification, the case of Leduc County, Alberta, Canada. And I'm sure I mutilated that, so you will correct me. Welcome.
Okay, let's see this clicker. I don't know, you're gonna have to do that part. Okay, so as we heard in the first session, many people wear many hats. Today, I'm going to tell you about 3 of my hats that intertwine with each other. And I think at the end of the day, they make each other better. So I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. In my day job, I work for a municipality called Leduc County, which is just south of the capital city of Alberta in Edmonton. So I'll get you to the next one. So my husband and I own a very small cut flower farm. In 2017, when we were going to get married, I said that I wanted dahlia flowers for our wedding, and to get them in Edmonton is challenging because they come from one province over, dry shipped in a refrigerated truck, and dahlias hate being cold and hate being out of water. So by the time they get to me, they're very miserable and I can only use a couple of them. And so we dug out all the sod in our yard in Edmonton and planted 200 dahlia tubers. And from there, we then started telling people, and people said, hey, could you grow flowers for us? We ran out of room in our city lot, and another farmer said, hey, do you want to come out to our farm? And so these pictures were just from a couple of weeks ago. We had 200 people out at our U-Pick. We have just half an acre of cut flowers, and we expanded in the winter months to growing tulips indoors in our basement. And so from the perspective of this project, I am a tourism operator in Strathcona County. So next slide. In Alberta, small farms, similar to what we've been seeing here in Vermont, even the restaurants, there's probably more restaurants just in this small community than all of the Edmonton region. Everything is big scale, industrialized, synthetic inputs, export orientated, and that works, but not for everyone. We have an aging farmer population. We have a farmer population that has a significant debt load, and there's a high rate of suicide. And so there's many of us that have said we want to get back into farming because we've been away from it, but we don't want to get back into this type of farming. And so how can we do something that is sustainable and has the lifestyle that we want and works with the municipalities in which we can get land? So next. So we're seeing an increase in these types of production. And so one of the things that I decided was, now I think I've probably going to be the longest master's student in history. I started in 2016 part-time at the University of Alberta and had 2 kids in between, and doing my master's degree in the School of Public Health, looking at how municipal government and agritourism operators can co-create agritourism strategies. So as a number of these operators begin to develop, the government has a role to play in assisting them, in my opinion. But the challenge with that is often government thinks that they don't necessarily have all the skills, they don't have in-house capacity to be able to do that. And we often rely on consultants. And it's hit and miss with consultants. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not so good. In my day job, I'm the economic development officer for Leduc County, focused on the development of an agritourism strategy. So you see my three worlds combined. In Leduc County, we started agritourism strategy in the beginning of 2020. We worked with the Culinary Tourism Alliance, and was one of the first times that we worked with a consultant that provided us with a really easy to follow action plan rather than a strategy that sat on the shelf. The challenge was we got funding to develop the strategy, and there's been zero funding since to do the implementation, which is often the case with government funding. So what I've been doing over the last 2 years is how do I, as a municipal government employee and as an operator in a municipality that's right beside us, figure out how we co-create something without necessarily having the municipal government or provincial government drive it through funding. How do we get operators to help lead it? So go on to the next one. So on our own farm, it's interesting because I was part of a cut flower collective, and the goal of the collective was how do we sell flowers to retail florists, so selling them wholesale. And I thought to myself, I said, you know what, we're just doing exactly the same as what Big Ag is doing. We're growing something, shipping out a raw product at the lowest possible price. So we started in conjunction with Strathcona County, the county in which we have our farm. They have a 10-year agritourism strategy. And I was in a meeting and they said, okay, we developed this strategy. We hired somebody to come in. We need the tourism operators to lead it now. I was like, that's interesting. I went to a meeting with other operators on our street because we do a farm stand tour around the block. And they said, well, government's supposed to be supporting this. Why aren't they taking the lead? Both sides are sitting waiting for the other to do something. So I've adjusted my master's thesis to include both Leduc County and Strathcona County because the tourist doesn't know where the county line is. And we've created a working group of both the municipal employees and the tourism operators to develop this participatory action research project to fulfill my master's degree. So next slide. So yeah, the two partners both are next to the city of Edmonton, very close to the airport. Both primary sectors are agriculture and agri-food, along with oil and gas, and primarily large farms with a number of the next generation coming in saying, we need to do something different. We want to have a way for customers to connect. And both municipalities struggling with trying to figure out how do we help support this next sector. So next, and I talk really fast, but that leaves us time for questions. So what we're doing is trying to figure out, do tourism operators want to work with municipal government? One of the things that we found in the last 2 years is the majority of farmers don't think they're in tourism, even though they have people coming onto the farm. So understanding the language that we use has been really important, and helping build capacity of farmers to understand how they can play a role in tourism. And the second is many people are very leery of government. When you say, hey, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help, which I don't say, but that's the attitude that's there. And I think the position in which I'm in is really interesting because I am an operator, so I can have a different perspective on how the government can play a role in assisting the agritourism operators. And the last is, I think the biggest challenge that we've learned over the last 2 years of working on this project is that the bigger challenges aren't with the operators or getting operators on board. The biggest challenge is with the other departments in the municipality in which I work. So I'll give you an example of one in Sturgeon County, which is just north of us, that went very sideways that I would like Leduc County to use as a case study. There's a farm, an agritourism farm that started 38 years ago as a traditional farm. They've built a greenhouse, a corn maze, a U-pick, on-farm events, farm-to-table dinners. the county in the springtime asked that operator to be the chair of their agritourism strategy committee. And just last week, the other part of the county, planning and development, gave them a stop work order. They can no longer host events on their farm. They're limited to 100 people, and they need to make their income from permitted uses, which is strictly agriculture. So I feel like we've taken 10 steps back. And so that's one of the things that, how do I utilize those experiences to work with our planning and development and our assessment departments to have them as part of this group that works directly with operators so that everybody has an understanding of the decisions that impact the operators rather than particularly in our municipality is the focus has been on attracting business and supporting business that increases assessment. So the direction is let's get Amazon because they give us $1 million in taxes rather than 10 little farms that provide us with a lot of headache for permitting, for assessment, for safety concerns. And so it's overcoming that challenge of like the perception of it. We've also heard from the investment attraction group that works with us that they can attract Amazon and they can attract the big companies, but if there isn't those culture and those educational and fun activities for families to do, those companies don't stay, the people don't stay. And so there needs to be more linkages in that understanding so that the municipality wants to be able to work with the smaller operators.
From India, and presently we, the farming community in India, are severely facing due to the climate change. And I see there is a great opportunity to develop a source of income for the farming community. as a to mitigate with the climate change. So how about the other part of the world, particularly Canada or US? So
With regard to small farms?
is it? I see the good opportunities in this agritourism business. As a business, we can develop it as an individual farmer, or the presently we are currently in India, we are developing farmer producer companies, and even in the development sector, that is the non-profit sector, government is also encouraging the communities to develop these agritourism. And 35% of the urban people, they are not aware about agriculture practices. They don't know the children, their children don't know from where the milk comes. So even that is very strange for them. And here is the business. So I am curious about how to is the Canada and other part of the world. How you see the opportunities of developing business and mitigating the climate change in this agriculture?
Well, I can tell you from my small farm and the way that we think, not necessarily connected to the municipality. So we have a small cut flower farm. We don't use any synthetic herbicides or pesticides. And because we have two small kids and a dog, and trying to like run after them and say, oh, don't eat this and don't touch this, we just sprayed this, or it doesn't work for us. So we don't spray anything. The most I ever spray is soapy water to get rid of aphids. And then we work really hard on how do we build up our soil in order to protect our plants. So a healthy plant is less likely to be attacked by various bugs. And so we're constantly monitoring soil, and how do we have amendments back into that? How do we use cover cropping? How do we use the cattle manure from the farm that we work with? And so bringing those systems that we used to have before we imported everything back into our farm. And for me, it's teaching my two little kids about those things. How do you pick a cucumber from the field? How do you preserve that cucumber? How do you make pickles? When she sees pickles on a plate, she's all excited about them. So for us at our farm, it's that. But then in my day job, I'm telling people, oh, don't just grow a commodity and sell it. So then I was like, okay, maybe I need to start practicing what I preach. And so instead of just cutting flowers and selling them wholesale, we started doing additional things. So we do U-Picks on farm, where people come and learn about soil science. They learn about the different insects that we have, and they get to pick their flowers, then take them home, and they get to see what local flowers look like versus ones that have been imported from thousands of kilometers away. We just did a farm to table dinner in the flower field a couple weeks ago. The return that I can get as a farmer on an experience is far higher than that I can get in just selling a product. So the more times I can create experiences, the more sustainable my farm is.
These agritourism companies and firms, are they trying to inculcate these in school curriculum program?
Yeah, in Alberta they are. So like, for example, at the beginning of August, we had a thing called Alberta Open Farm Days. And so we invited 500 people onto our farm, many who have never been to a farm before. And I didn't even think about it. I just was getting water for the buckets to put the flowers in. And we have a well in the barn, and it has a pump, and the hose comes out of the wall, and you plug the well pump in, and it puts water in your bucket. And there was a guy standing there. He's like, did the water just come out of the wall? I said, yeah, I plugged the pump in. I've never seen that before. It only comes out a tap. I was like, and we're only 25 minutes from Edmonton. Like, it's a major metropolitan city. They also have classroom ag programs. There's the green certificate program. So there are coming more in elementary and the high schools. Yeah.
But even on your presentation, you have an interesting slide. I think you said something to the effect that project is dominated by large scale industrialized farming companies, etc. And you followed up with a statement that said it works, but not for everyone. I was going to ask you to elaborate on that a bit, because the question or the pushback that you're getting, particularly from agribusiness, agritourism operators, is that it doesn't work. And in fact, last year, the UN had this major food system summit, where the argument is that the food system is broken, and the key culprit are these large-scale operators. So it's interesting to you elaborate on why you think it works, or what aspect of it works, and what sort of partnership, if any, you think can be between what they're doing and what initiatives like yourselves are doing, or what needs to be done, because it seems as though reform the food system. And perhaps this is a shameless plug for my presentation session tomorrow. We get it at 9, because we deal with food systems. How do you think this can be, if there's any room at the table for both models to work?
Yes.
10 seconds to tackle.
Yes. I think there's room for both. And that's one of the things that I strive for every day in my day job, is showing that there's room for both. And it's not this one or this one. We can't just drop the industrialized ag system today and say everybody become farmers. Farming is very hard work, and most people are never going to be able to cut it as a farmer. And so we need both, but we need the understanding and education to move to better systems in both spaces.